So I will call the meeting to order, and our first item of business is approval of the minutes from the November 15th work session. Did we have any changes or revisions there?
I have, oh, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead.
I have one.
I've got some very minor changes on the first line. I think in the middle of the first line, I think it should say draft materials for the Cannon Beach Heritage Tree Program. I couldn't hear that.
You're on page 9 of the November 15th minutes.
Yes. Page 1, the first line of the minutes, draft materials for the Cannon Beach Heritage Tree Program. So adding the.
Second paragraph, second line, near the end, I think it should say, it was decided that a trees meeting criteria with adding the letter A, the word A, before tree and making trees possessive instead of plural. Third paragraph, fourth word, get rid of example. That's it.
Okay. And going back to that second paragraph, then I think would strike the plural trees. So it would be that a tree meeting criteria in any of the named categories.
That would be fine too.
Okay. Anyone else have changes or comments on the November 15th minutes?
Not sure if mine is on the 15th, but it's on community grants.
I think that would be for the next, we need to do the minutes separately. Okay. So we'll do the 15th first, which was just the Heritage Trees meeting. Thanks. Okay. So hold the thought. Do we have a motion then for the minutes for the 15th?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great, passes, thank you. And then now we have the minutes from November 18th, our regular meeting. And any changes here?
I've got some at about the same level. On the third page, under Heritage Tree Program, second paragraph, pretty much in the center of that paragraph, that important trees deserve no S protection. That's the only one I had there. Oh, except at the very end.
Oh, important trees deserve protection. So strike the S on deserves.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
And on page, I have a question on page 4. Under adjourn, was it really Barb who adjourned the meeting?
No, it was not. That was a clerical error from staff.
Thank you.
Oh. Definitely be Sorensen there.
And Betty, did you have one on the grants?
I do. It's page 2 at the bottom. The last sentence, it says the committee, presenting the committee will a new draft. It should be with a new draft for review.
Great, thank you. And similarly on page 2, the sentence under the heading community grants, I think we can strike the word on there. I think that was, so had a productive work session this last month, but strike on.
I have one on the first page, right above B on the minutes from Thursday, October 28th. It said Sorensen had a few clarifications to the minutes. Was that prior to approval?
Correct.
So prior to approval of the minutes from the 28th or the minutes from?
That should be moved down under.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I had a note on page 3, first paragraph, 1, 2, 3, fourth sentence, NOP said that the changes implemented this year may erase the need. I would say eliminate the need for that conversation.
I have lost track of where we are. Could you
This is page
clarify?
3. This is page 3 of the minutes for the 18th.
Oh, okay.
So just replacing the word erase with eliminate in that first paragraph. And then we caught the other one I had, which was the adjournment note. So that's all I have. Anything else for the 18th? Do we have a motion?
I move to accept the minutes of November 18th as amended.
I,
Do we have a second? Okay,
I
those in
second.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're getting our timing. All right. Thank you. Do we have any public comment today? No one signed up for public comment? Okay. Monthly state of the parks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
morning.
When we established the nature trail, I call it the Sewer Lagoon Loop Trail, there was a nice map that I think we had done. And anyway, we recently revised it to reflect the change on the multi-use portion of the trail. If you recall, originally the whole loop trail was no bicycles allowed, but they actually are allowed on the east side. And we finally, management and Trevor leading the way, have built a new map. It's very similar, but it's just more accurate. The color codes are better, and we've also added a basic evacuation routes with Rick's input. So that's a change. I don't know if they're not installed yet, but they'll be.
They're not installed yet. We're gonna print off some pamphlets and I'll
The
just.
chamber has pamphlets and passes them out, but it was about time to make those accurate. So that was a good thing. We contracted with Nicola Lewis to do her etched glass replica of the murals at the old school. She has them on 5 of the 6 bus stops. And now the 6th one has been done after several years. She was home from Alaska for the Thanksgiving holiday and she knocked it up in a week. And so when you go down Yukon S-curves and look at the Yukon bus stop, there's a new etched glass image there of Haystack Rock with a rainbow. The softball baseball field has been put to bed for the winter. That's pulling the bases and covering home plate and the pitcher's mound with tarps. Joe and I spent a day installing holiday lights and garland around town at 5 locations. The soccer goals have also been removed from the field for the winter, like we always do. They're up off the trail and locked together and taking a break for the winter. We've completed the annual efforts at the rose garden that takes off and on, takes about a week to prune, weed at the rose garden and top dress it with new mulch. To me, it looks pretty good but it's done anyway.
I had an idea that Darrell Johnson had undertaken to maintain that back when it was put in. Did I understand? Is he no longer doing that?
Well, he'll talk to me when I screw it up. But he helped me. He showed me how to plant it. He showed me how to prune them. He deadheaded them a couple summers, some years ago, but he hasn't had any active involvement except for criticizing what I do. But what do you call it? Constructive criticism.
Needle him.
Well, I do. We needle each other, and it's
Okay.
I can't do anything drastic there without consulting with him, but that's about as far as his involvement goes these days. We worked with the roads department to plant 100 St. John worts on the hillside on the west of the S-curves, on top of the S-curves. We've been mowing that and keeping it more maintained over the years. As a result, it's been more welcoming to the elk. So they've been climbing on that hillside. And so we packed the dirt back and planted some St. John wort, recommended by our engineer, to help stabilize that hill so we can keep maintaining it, but the elk won't be able to damage it as much. And just a fun story, 3 times in the last month, we've picked up 100 or more apples from Les Shirley Park. There's some do-gooder out there who wants to feed the elk, so it's against the law. And they throw buckets of apples out there and which to me is kind of like garbage. So we pick them up and throw them away. And I keep hoping that a neighbor will come out and say, what are you doing? And we can have a conversation, but.
Nobody has any idea who it is.
I mean, I certainly don't, but someone who's got they aren't store-bought apples. They're from someone's apple tree.
I'm sure I'm gonna get a call. I haven't received it.
Okay, good.
But
Wow.
I haven't heard. It's just a little interesting anecdote to finish my report. That's what I got. I'll answer any questions or.
I've got one thing. As of yesterday, the handicap access ramp at Tollabata Park has been officially closed for the winter.
Okay.
Bay State Parks has been notified, telling you guys, and then I'm probably gonna go down to the chamber, and just let them know. that
Yeah.
It's closed for the season.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Do we have any questions for the Parks report?
I would just like to say thank you for the Christmas lights. I think that makes it really nice. Have that on city.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thanks for all you guys do seasonally and for picking up the apples. Okay, right-of-way tree removals. We had several in the packet this time. Do we have any questions or comments on those? Anything we need to look at there? Okay. Community grants. In your packet, you will find some draft changes reflecting the work that we did at our work session and notes that we discussed at our last meeting and that I passed on to Kelsey. And thank you so much, Kelsey, for integrating all of those notes into this draft. I know that involved a lot of work. In detail. So what I'd like to do today is move through this, and I hope you've all had a chance to look at it. Time is such that we really need to get a draft finalized in January so that the packets can go out for applicants. So what I'd like to do today is just move expeditiously through this page by page, noting that the changes have been incorporated, and let's not stop and discuss unless there's a real issue or a question, because we have quite a lot to get through. Is that all agreed?
One quick comment,
I'm
staff
sorry?
here. I did wiggle a little bit with the dates wherein we officially post the applications publicly. I actually moved that date like a day or two after your February Parks meeting. So you've got, because we were incorporating so many changes, and it really doesn't change the timeline, they've still got, multiple months to apply. I figured that would just give you guys a little extra time if needed, January and February, to make sure that this application reflects what we want.
That's great. Thank you, Kelsey. Great thinking. Okay. So if we're all agreed on that and everyone has the draft in front of them, let's just move through it in the order that it is in your packet. And I'm going to refer to the page numbers as they are the pages of the application itself, not the packet number. Okay. So we're going to start looking at the timeline. That's the first page in your packet. There were minor changes to the wording on May 19th, 20th, and 26th. Those dates reflect just our emphasis on clarifying any additional information the committee might need from applicants. And the first major change is on May 31st, where we've added a preliminary worksheet. So committee members will submit preliminary numbers to Kelsey on the 31st. On June 8th, we will have a work session to discuss those preliminary numbers, address any questions, have a committee discussion on that. And then it looks like what we have here is by the end of that day, by 5 p.m., those worksheets would be submitted. Is that what you intended, Kelsey, that we would have the work session and then the end of that day, people would submit their numbers?
Yeah, in fact, I think most of you are probably going to have fairly finalized numbers by the end of that meeting after the discussion. So I figured you wouldn't need too much time to finagle those. And there is kind of a tight turnaround time when you're trying to get those meetings in and make sure you've got enough time to get your packet materials. So this is the way I figured it out. If anyone's got any better suggestions, I'm open to it.
I would ask that since some of us go right to work right after our meetings, to maybe move it to the next morning at 9 a.m. So we'd have at least the evening to get the numbers
That makes
finalized.
sense. I can see the logic behind that.
Great. Okay, so we'll add June 9th by noon. Would that work for you, Kelsey?
June 1st.
I'm sorry, if we have the
June
work
9th,
session
yeah.
on June
Okay.
8th, and then if the final worksheets are due June 9th by noon, does that work for everybody?
Yeah, be perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that will still give enough time to get all of that information.
Yeah, and I think you're right in thinking that there probably won't be significant changes, so there might be a few tweaks, but it'll largely be settled. Okay, and then I don't think there's anything else on the timeline that has been changed. Do we have any?
I apologize for breaking in. I have a question on the February 18th entry there. Is it only last year's grant recipients who should be sending these to, or should we send them to all grant applicants from the preceding year?
Well, that's basically the same list.
I beg your pardon?
It's the same list.
Exactly the same list.
It's going to, as long as everybody who applied got something, it's going to be the same. I'm contemplating the possibility there would be people who applied and didn't get anything.
I think that all of the work we've been doing here related to the grants process is to be able to move forward. I think the only situation we would see where an applicant wasn't considered would be if their application was not complete or was late. But if I understand, everyone who applied received monies. Is that correct? It's how it has been.
Actually, I think that's true. Okay, do we want to send applications again to people have we had organizations who submitted incomplete applications and therefore were excluded?
Do we want to change grant recipients to last year's grant applicants? Would that clarify it for everybody?
But then you have to think about, is an applicant, if somebody was late or is missing stuff, are they really an applicant? Because we didn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we leave it grant recipients, but this gets posted, there is a public posting. So there are other avenues that people can learn about. Certainly if they were interested or applied previously, I think they'd have an avenue to know about it. Okay, great. Can we move on to?
One typo. May 26th, last line, those who have been addressed instead of addresses in applicant responses.
Okay.
Just one other comment from staff. This timeline document is not a public facing document.
Right.
So all of these notes in here are for you guys as the committee to make sure you stay on track.
Thank you.
But this particular timeline doesn't get posted on the website. Sure, it's in our packet. But just so you're aware, is all these kind of notes are notes for you guys, less so notes for the public. So.
Right.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, great. Let's look at the letter. It is the next page, the letter to applicants. In the first paragraph, we add the line, organizations may apply for project-specific funds or operational funding. I noticed one change here that I didn't, Kelsey, I didn't catch this, though I intended to. In the 3rd paragraph, the sentence before incomplete or late applications will not be considered. I think we need to strike that. The line saying finally, organizations are required, because we are now asking for differential requirements depending on whether they are first-time applicants or depending on their kind of where they are in that. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I actually am glad you brought that up because I had kind of a question mark on that one from my notes of incorporating the edits. So I'm glad we clarified that we can strike that sentence.
So we're striking the
So we can
sentence,
just strike that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
the sentence that starts with finally.
Mhm.
Okay, good. I have that.
Do we want to keep?
I have
Yep.
I have a suggestion for, in that same paragraph, at the beginning of the 4th line, replacing the word paper with pages, since a lot of this isn't going to be on paper. And I think page is going to be reasonably well defined for us. 8.5 by 11-inch pages instead of paper.
Don't they turn it in?
I just figured.
Well, if they can submit it
It
electronically,
can be submitted on the website.
right, but you still want your documents to be formatted on 8.5 by 11 paper. Or we're going to get, spreadsheets, with or printed on.
That's why I'm not suggesting taking it out. I'm suggesting replacing it with the word pages. I'm not gonna, if you want to keep paper,
Could we say 8.5 by 11 format?
that's equally fine with
Yeah.
me.
That
Great.
would,
Okay, let's
yeah.
say.
Thank you.
Okay, did we have, so that was the only change I saw there, and with that, the strikeout of that one sentence. Anything else for that page? Okay. Oh.
At at the end of the paragraph after that, I suggest that it will only be considered if an evaluation form for their most recent grant has been submitted for the previous grant. I think is ambiguous as far as which one, since a lot of organizations have more than one, but to clarify it, that's for their most recent grant, if that's our intent.
So on that, so it could say has been submitted for the most recent grant received.
Yes.
Did you get that, Kelsey?
Yep.
Okay.
And finally, at the end of the paragraph after that, do we refer to this as community grant program or the community grant program? It seems more mellifluous or something to say the community grant program.
We can
Is
add
subject to change.
the community grant program.
Yeah.
LSI line. And I'm going to I just want to float this. We've got a number of changes that we made based on the work that we've done to update the application. I want to make sure that we can address all of those, understanding that there may be smaller editorial comments or editorial changes that we want to make before the very final one. And since Kelsey has adjusted or has scheduled in a way that we'll have actually 2 meetings to consider that, could we move forward today just looking at these content changes, and then we can catch the editorial stuff, the smaller stuff for the final pass? Great. Okay.
Sure.
I'm always just, looking at the clock. So thanks for that. Okay, great. So we're moving on now to the first page of the actual application. I don't think we had any changes until paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4.
What's at the top of that page? I've got mine.
Application for funding community grants.
Got it.
Okay,
Got it.
great. So in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, we added the, this is that sentence or that statement And I want to, first of all, just see if folks are good with the wording, and then second, the placement, because we didn't ever talk about exactly where we would put it in this page. So based on our last conversation, rather than talking about a specific amount, we just said, for example, combined, well, I'll just read the statement. Each year, funds available for community grants are distributed among many organizations, each doing vital work in our community. Typically, combined funding requests far exceed the amount of funds available. For example, combined grant requests were nearly double the available budget last year. Please keep this in mind as you consider your organization's specific needs and goals for each funding cycle. Does that cover what we wanted to cover there? Or not? Okay, are we good with that?
Yeah, I think the wording's great, but I thought it was more than double, not nearly double, but
We can tweak that. I think it was more than double. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think more
and I
than
think
double.
that's pretty much happens every year.
Yeah, I'll double check, go back.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then are we good with the placement there? That seems like a logical place. Okay, great. I had one question on just formatting. Okay, so then the next change is the way that we have parsed this out. The items that all applicants must provide, the items that first-time applicants must provide, and then if they are requesting operating funds or it's been 3 years or longer since the last application. So I'm not going to read through all this, but does this comport with what everyone understands those changes were intended to be?
Yes.
Yeah, if I can.
Question for you guys, just something to think about. Because obviously I spent a lot of time with this document and putting in the edits, so my wheels were turning in my head. So I'm just going to throw this out there. If you like it, great. If you don't, move on. My thought process specifically related to this kind of multi-tiered section is, are you guys comfortable with the fact that you're asking for less information from returning applicants than from new applicants? I know that for Betty and Les coming on board this year, right before the community grant process, and you're going to have new members on your committee moving forward, they'll not have the background history of those organizations' financial pictures from previous years. So they may feel like they need more of that information than what the longtime committee members need. And then if you're focusing very hard, and it's in bright bold red letters, on making sure that you are not considering grant applications that are submitted incomplete, you're making it harder on yourselves to establish which applications are complete and which are missing things, because each application is going to have a different checklist of what they need. And then it will possibly increase confusion for applicants and increase reaching out to staff if they're really wanting to make sure that they're not submitting an incomplete application and therefore not being thrown out of contention. So they might be double, triple checking, confused about which list of these applies to me. That's particularly in my mind when it comes to volunteer organizations. In the year plus that I've been in this job, I think 3 of these organizations have reached out to me with a new person who's heading up their application process. And they may not be aware, just coming on board as the person now filling out this application, they may not be aware of when they last applied or what was submitted last year. So the organizational turnover when you're coming up on volunteer organizations also was in my mind. I know that's a lot of information, but it's just things that popped into my head as I was inputting all of these changes.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the committee on this. Thanks, Kelsey. We did, have quite a lot of discussion about this. It was the basis for wanting to clarify and streamline some of the information, but I want to hear from the committee about any thoughts on that, because I think those are all considerations, and I think we are just weighing the wanting to be clear and also weighing that the change with the direction that we're trying to go with this. So I'd like to hear from members on that.
Like to do is try this system for 1 year and see what problems occur or what problems are resolved, and then evaluate at the end of the cycle. I don't want to put any extra work on the city staff and as a member of many volunteer organizations, I don't want to put added weight on those organizations, but I would like to try it for a year and just see how it goes.
Other comments or
Good.
questions?
I'm comfortable
Line,
with the
Mrs.
way it
List.
is now, and I'm comfortable with going with what Barb says and re-examining it after a year.
And so, Les, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just thinking as I recall, the incentive for removing the detailed budget and detailed profit and loss statements was really trying to lessen the burden on the grant requesters, those organizations. And I don't know how you're going to find out whether we increase their confusion or we actually lessen the workload on them until we try it. So I'd kind of like to try it as well, the way it's stated.
Yeah. You know, I think one thing that committee might want to consider is just having, I don't know, formal or informal, but an opportunity for applicants to give feedback on the new format. That might be great. And I would also just encourage some, that could maybe even happen in the presentations. I'm maybe not there, but just something to think about. And I think this is really a question of initially, it would just be making sure that the new applicants are in a separate pile from the repeating applicants, and repeating applicants, we just see, are they asking for operating funds or are they asking for project specific funds? So I think there's an initial sorting that happens, and after that, hopefully it'll be pretty clear. The one thing I thought about here is I wonder if we could strike the words "in this order" for the second and third paragraph. So for the first time applicants, I think if we could just say first time applicants must also provide the following, period, rather than in this order. And likewise, if requesting general operating funds, that line, if it could say applicants must provide, but strike in this order. I think the order is more relevant for the primary information that all applicants are submitting. Is that agreed? Does that make sense what I'm pointing to here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
So are we good going forward with this format and then getting some sense of how it's going for folks?
yes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. Next page. Do we want to keep the incomplete or late applications in red, or do you think bold is sufficient there?
Red.
Okay, make it clear. Okay. The next page is, the top line is, thank you for your interest in the City of Cannon Beach's community grants. And I think the only change here was we made bullet points. For the organizational information, we clarified some of that and made it bullet points on that last paragraph under number 2. Does that comport with everybody's understanding?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, page 3 of the application, the only change, we made one small change. We added check all that apply on number 4. So that's been done. We also, and I think that was the only change on that page. One thing that caught my eye under number 4 in that paragraph, describe the program or project. We could bullet point those, and that would make it more consistent with the other changes. Or we could leave it the way it is.
I like the bullet points.
Yeah, I like bullet points too.
I think it does push them to make sure they've got something addressing each of those.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was our rationale elsewhere. So Kelsey, do you see where that is on describe the program project under number 4?
I do. I think you're probably gonna bump onto the next page if you put bullet points in there from a formatting standpoint. Because you're already almost down to the bottom of page 4. That's the only thought that I have on it.
I think we don't need to have a given amount of space in between those, since they're presumably going to put all this on separate sheet anyway.
Yeah.
So
So you can maybe decrease the space between 5 and 6 and 6 in the end of the page.
That'll work.
Okay, let's give that a try anyway. Okay. Page 4, we have that same trio of information. Again, I would suggest striking for the second and third elements, the words "in this order." It's just the same change, so it would just be reflecting the same change we talked about from the first one.
Jelaine,
Any? Mhm.
what if we put a checkbox beside, in some way beside first-time applicants, and then if requesting general operating funds, so that they could self-identify whether they thought they were applying under one of those two cases?
I think that I don't think that would hurt anything, but on the other hand, they're doing so by either entering or not entering anything under that.
That's true.
I think we've covered, so if you're a first-time applicant, you're going to be giving detailed information, which would cover everything that's being asked if you were asking for operating funds. So I think that it's kind of nested, it's like all applicants provide the long list. First-time applicants are going to provide this more detailed information. And then if anyone asking for operating funds, that is only going to apply to repeat applicants, but it would be covered if a first-time applicant, anything being asked in the third section would be covered by the information given in the second one. Does that make sense? Maybe not, but I think we're covered there. We're asking for more detailed information from the first-time applicants, which would cover anything that was being requested in the third paragraph. Okay.
Right.
So now we're on page 5 of the application. Again, I don't see any changes or additions to this except that change to the format of the checklist, which is what we just talked about. So if we could strike the words "in this order" under the second paragraph and third there. And then
What's at the top of that page? I'm lost again.
Criteria and checklist, community grants application. It's the next page. It says page 5 at the bottom of the application itself.
So there's the check boxes I was thinking of before.
Yeah, it's the criteria and checklist. The top of the page says criteria, and then there's the checklist for grants funding request. And it is, Bob, it's just repeating what we just looked at. All applicants must provide the following. First-time applicants provide, and those requesting operating.
Okay.
And then there are check boxes there. So that's just the checklist. So the applicant can make sure they've covered everything before they submit it.
Okay. I hit it in the end.
And that also reiterates all information must be on 8.5 by 11 format rather than size of paper. We can change to make that consistent. That agreed there? Any other changes there? Okay, so the next page is the grant evaluation, recipient evaluation. Here we added the organization name at the top. We bullet pointed the information under number 1. And we bullet pointed the information under number 3, budget. I don't think there were any other changes there. Does that reflect everybody's understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Would this, the heading says fiscal year 22, 23, but this is actually the evaluation of the prior grant. Is that correct?
Oh, good point.
It's a bit confusing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, right at the heading there, Kelsey.
Yeah.
So because it's the evaluation, it would be for the previous year, right? Or are we just saying? Is that fiscal year 2022, 2023, is that referring to the grant year that's being evaluated? Or is that referring to this is our current application year?
Oh, maybe it is.
It's for the awards that we're considering next year. So this is the form that they get with the packet. If they get the award, they fill out this evaluation form. They've already got the evaluation form
For this year.
for
Oh,
this
for the
year.
previous year, right? So got it. So, okay, so this is going to be used for this year's evaluation. Got it. Okay, so I think we're.
Maybe since if something has confused Les, it's probably going to confuse almost everybody else. How about adding a line under there to be submitted after completion of the fiscal year, whatever,
Well, I think that's covered in,
grant performance or something.
Bob, I think that's covered in the first paragraph.
Yes.
All grantees are required to complete an evaluation to the city within 30 days of completion of the program or project. So I think that's clear. And we do have
Okay.
that fiscal year 22, 23 at the top of all of the pages. So I think it's
Except one.
consistent.
Under,
What do you think, Les?
on page.
No, I think
Okay.
that's fine. It just,
Okay.
if someone needs clarification, then they'll ask the question.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for that. All right, I think we are looking at the public notice, and the only change I am aware of that we made here was we added organizations may apply for project-specific funds or operational funding, and that's in that first paragraph, the last line. Did anyone else? I don't think there were any other changes to that page. Okay.
And that we're gonna tweak, we're gonna do minor tweaks at a later time, right?
Yeah, I think there'll be a chance in
okay,
January and
okay.
February to catch any.
Okay,
final
this is
edits.
a minor tweak. Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I think we're just looking for content here to make sure we're
Yeah.
on the page. Okay, I think that covers the additions that we've done to this application. And like I said, January and February will give opportunity to do final tweaks. Kelsey, do you have everything you need to get it ready for next month's meeting?
So I had one quick question that kind of came up during last year's grant cycle. We had an applicant reach out and say that they had not used their funding from the previous grant cycle because of COVID, because they weren't able to do the program that they had hoped. So I just had a question. Do you want to add in any sort of restriction anywhere that says that if the funds are not used for the program or item specified, they have to be returned? There is some example wording in the TAC application that has a restriction that we could possibly utilize, if that's something you guys are interested in.
Yeah, I think with COVID, that's probably the first time that's come up. I don't know if folks, Barb, have you ever seen that come up prior, or anybody else, JC?
No. But I think it could this time. Yeah. Well, I would say that the money that was given to them last year, if they aren't able to do the program, hopefully they're going to, once these restrictions are lifted, are going to be able to. So again, I think I would, I think the organizations still need the funds. They still need the program that they're going to, that they receive the money for, and hopefully they'll get a chance to complete the project.
I agree. I would not want the money returned to the city. Is there some way that we could encourage an organization that couldn't do what they had proposed, could come up with something different that would be doable and still serve the city and the community. I mean, I don't know that it wouldn't have been okay to use last year's money in some other way as long as it met our basic criteria.
I wonder if there's a pot of money that an organization wasn't able to use and the next application cycle comes up, could there be a category where an applicant is applying for, to basically kind of advising the committee of how they would like to use the money in the coming year? So if they had to make a change because of COVID, but they already have the money and have it set aside, would they be essentially describing the program and going through the process of, doing a presentation and saying, we weren't able to use the money last year, but we would really like to apply it and we think we can use it in this way this year. So the committee would still be getting the information they need, but it wouldn't require a transfer of money back and forth. Just a holding of it and then asking if this would meet the criteria or if this would, how the committee would view.
I think that's a good idea. And I think that if we agree to that, I think that we should also decide whether it's okay, whether we would be receptive to a group both applying to keep the money that they haven't spent from last year and spend it on, and tell us what they would like to spend it on, and apply for some of the next round's money for something else.
Well, my feeling on that is
not we want.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I don't know how other folks feel. Let's hear from everybody. My feeling is that if they still have a lot of money they haven't used, they use that first before applying for additional monies. Perhaps
Okay.
How do other folks feel about that?
Well, I think there's a lot of nonprofits that are have really hurt because they haven't been able to fundraise. So I think I don't think they should be restricted to not to apply for additional funds because fundraising hasn't taken place due to COVID. Traditional fundraisers.
I could see either argument, to be honest with you. I think we have a responsibility to, be judicious in this, using how the city's money is being spent. Maybe the case where the problem might crop up is if an organization received money last year for something that couldn't be done and they applied for money this year for exactly the same thing. I don't think that would be appropriate to double the money for the same program.
I'm thinking of a couple of elements here in our time frame. The first is if we are going to address this specifically for organizations where this may have happened, what is the communication that we need to make and how do we make that communication to applicants? And then what if the application process is different for them, how is it different? And is there time for the committee to actually consider that and work through it before this next funding cycle? So I'm just thinking logistically here.
I think we might be making this too complicated. I think because we've never experienced anything like this before, I think if it comes up, we react as a committee at the time. But I think, if we start sending out correspondence about this, it might further complicate. Let's keep it simple.
Okay, so
Do we want to, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Do we want to consider the possibility of if an organization comes to us and says, we're not prepared to submit our evaluation. And we haven't submitted it because we couldn't do the project, to tell them, submit the new application with that information, making it clear that this is for money that you've already been awarded, but you're asking to keep it and use it in the new year. And just wait and see if that comes up, and have that prepared as an answer to the question. And then we can use our existing application form and just say, put a note on the top someplace that that's what's going on.
Well, I think they would still complete the evaluation form, and the evaluation form would say we couldn't do the project because, and then we're treating all the applicants the same way.
Yeah.
That's good.
That makes sense. And then that clarifies what staff would reply if there's a question from an organization that comes in. The response would be, fill out the evaluation form stating the reason that you were not able to use the monies as intended, and then submit an application for this year in terms of your request and how you would use the monies. Is that where we are?
Good.
That's where I am.
Okay. Okay, great. Kelsey, does that clarify enough? So if it comes up, you can give them guidance. Okay, great. Okay, thanks everybody for that. I know that was a lot. So moving forward, Heritage Tree Program. I'm mindful of the time here, and I think what maybe we could do today is just identify from our work session a couple of things that I think we agreed to, and we had talked previously about using the format of the Portland ordinance as the format we'd like to use, and then just make sure that the language comports with the specifics for our program and our city. And just as and I think I said this in my email to you all last week, I think if we get the language of the ordinance clear, then it will be a simple matter to finish up the work on the nomination form and an information page and anything else that we need to make available to applicants, because we'll have the ordinance, the proposed ordinance, and then we can make the language consistent with that. So I think it makes sense to focus here. As we move through this, I think the item C, the question about how we treat private trees, I went back and in looking at the minutes, and my recollection of our last meeting was that folks were in favor of including trees on private property, and that those would be recorded on the deed to afford them that protection, as long as there was also a process that was clear if a tree needed to be removed, if that designation needed to be removed, or if there was an emergency hazard situation where the tree had to be pruned or removed. And as long as those conditions were addressed specifically in the ordinance, that folks were okay with having that level of protection for private trees. Is that what everybody else?
I guess I've got a question. Knowing how I can just sort of check something off in my mind and not really get the paperwork done, do we want to include anything in here about making sure that in fact the condition is added to the deed? I'm not even sure how you go about doing that, let alone being sure that I would remember to do it.
I think that might be another layer of specificity that we need to address, and talking with what the process would be. I think here we're talking about our intention for the ordinance. It's 5 minutes to 10, so I'm just looking at the clock. It's 5 minutes to 10. We have a few more items, and I want to just check in with folks because I know folks' time can be limited. Can we go for a few more minutes? Would you favor tabling this and having another work session to continue working on this? Because I think, again, with our allotted time monthly, it's difficult to get through a lot of detail on a lot of these items. How do folks feel about this, and where are you in terms of time today?
Well, I know for sure we're not ready to go to city council in January.
Right. I think we had to table it.
Great.
I agree. I think we should table it. It's too important to rush through.
Yeah. So I would just highlight here for your consideration and going forward, the C of the Portland ordinance does speak to private trees and recording it on the deed. And then E, F, and H are that's the way that Portland has treated those specific questions about removing a designation, dealing with a hazard tree, or pruning. So please take a look at those, because I think the questions that were raised about private trees and how to handle that, they've been addressed in this ordinance pretty clearly. And then I think it's just a question for the committee to see if that meets, the parameters that we want to propose going forward. So we can just put a pin in this. And then, of course, just needing to change language, the Urban Forestry Commission in Portland would be either the tree board or the Parks Committee, just making all of that language consistent. So we'll go ahead and put a pin in that for a future work session and hopefully just focusing on the ordinance to get that proposal hammered out.
Can I ask one thing real quick?
Yes,
This is Kurt.
absolutely.
When you please also consider, for my sake, letter G, when you consider this, keep in mind our existing memorial plaque program. Thank you.
So Kirk, with that in mind, is it conceivable to have those plaques in the same place on the bandstand?
I prefer that way more than having them out next to each tree.
Oh, right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
They're all gonna be the same.
right. Yep. Yeah, definitely.
You're gonna have we could have a new board, there's 4 trees,
Right. But
some memorials, and it would
They'll all be
be,
the same size,
Be in the
same amount of
middle.
lettering.
yeah,
you can have the address of the tree. I don't care, but maintaining plaques out in the field is
right.
no fun.
Yep, we've been down that road. Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. Moving on, Ecola Creek Forest Reserve update. The only thing I have here, I let Barry know that we were looking to schedule after the holidays, further out once everybody's available to go, and that Mondays seem to be generally a good day for folks, though specific dates may need to be decided. I don't think we're in a position to choose dates, but maybe look at your calendar in January for some possible Mondays. If that's still the case, that Mondays are generally good, when you'll be available to do that. And as soon as we have some possible dates, I can, Barb can, I'll coordinate with Barry and Barb about getting that next step. But I think
Remember that one of the Mondays in January, which I think is the third Monday in January is Martin Luther King Day. So
okay.
anything that involves public employees shouldn't be scheduled for then.
Okay. And it could go later also, but just to keep in mind that it doesn't have to be, but that's kind of the information we have so far. And that one of those was a field visit to a portion of the proposed fire road, and that Barry looked at with the OWEB representative. And the other one is going up to the Cashman area, which I think could be done easily. It's close and it's accessible. So that might be one that could get scheduled pretty readily, or folks could go up individually to look at that. But that's related to the BlackBerry pilot projects and seeing what our next steps might be there. Does anybody have anything else to add there?
Regarding the BlackBerry pilot project site, I know Betty talked about a good place. It would be a good place to plant a few cedar trees at some point when things are under control. Just FYI, there are currently approximately 38 spruce trees and 20 alder trees that have volunteered in that location as we speak. So keep that in mind.
And Shalane, is Monday a good day for Barry? Mondays? You're muted.
Muted.
Shalane, you're muted.
Thank you. I think what he's looking for now are some possible dates. He didn't indicate that
Okay.
Mondays were not a good day. So he just said, let me know some possible dates and then,
Okay,
and then we'll
Thank you.
kind of go from there. So I can follow up with you, Barb, in
Okay.
terms of coordinating that. Anything else specific to the reserve? Okay. Annual projects and planning. We have many projects. The signage was one that was a high priority. And of course, everything was moved back considerably this year. But this might be a time to talk about work sessions. I brought that up at one of our work sessions, just the idea that it might be valuable to schedule work sessions, have it on the calendar, both for staff's scheduling and for the committee to be able to do the amount of work that we really have before us on a consistent basis. That trying to move it forward in a 1 hour segment once a month. I don't know if the committee will want to do that once a month or every 6 weeks or, how, but I just want to see if that's something that you want to move forward with. And if so, to include that in the agenda, the scheduling part and working with staff on getting those on the calendar. It is the committee's prerogative to schedule meetings when they feel they are needed. And the requirement is that they're publicly noticed and recorded. Now, I know that the COVID has put a different constraint on that because folks can't just come into the City Hall to attend the meeting. And so we have the technological constraint of needing to be able to live stream them. But please just be aware that the committee has the discretion to hold meetings when the committee needs to hold meetings. That's a prerogative and can be decided by the committee. So just be thinking about that going forward. I don't know if there are comments or discussion that you want to have on that at this point, but I just wanted to make sure that's part of the conversation because we talked about it before.
Okay.
Elaine, is this your last meeting?
Yes, it is.
If I understood, you're getting termed out. Is that right?
I would be in a little while. It would be before the end of the year. And this is just yeah. So this is and my term as chair is ending now. So this makes sense. Yeah, for me to make the transition now. Okay, playground equipment. Do we have any updates or anything we need to note there?
No.
Nothing on that. Okay. All right. We are at good of the order.
I got something.
Yep.
So just so you guys are aware, last Friday night, Saturday morning, we don't know when it happened, but during the windstorm up in the ECFR, next to our springs up there, the House Spring, we lost one of the giant cedars up there.
Oh.
They estimated it was about 100 feet tall. It fell down the road that goes to the House Spring. So we had to bring equipment up there Tuesday to get it off the access road to our springs. Just so you guys are aware.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, we don't, Friday night or Saturday morning last weekend when the winds came through.
We should have walked further on Saturday.
Yeah, we should.
So So just so everyone's
On
aware,
Saturday.
it fell down naturally in the windstorm.
Okay.
As we're all, I mean,
Has it, so it's all been cleaned up?
correct.
Oh.
It didn't get extracted because there was a lot of material
Right.
that just got moved
Oh.
off the access road to the spring.
It'll be good habitat and good nursery
Sure,
garden.
yeah.
Just so everyone's aware,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
Thanks for letting us know. Anyone else have anything for good of the order?
Just thank you, Jelaine, for all your years of service to the Parks Committee. And I do have treats, so we here will have them for you.
Stacy and I even color coordinated our outfit.
We did.
Oh, wow, man.
We had a performance all ready to go because I thought you were going to be here today. So you guys are all missing out on a really big show.
Oh, I had thought I'd be able to be there and I'm sorry that I'm not. So, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you. And, I just want to just say a word of thanks to everybody, everyone on the committee. It's been such a wonderful experience, past members and current members, and over all these years. Barb, for all of your support, in my years as chair, as vice chair, and your expertise, and just everybody's knowledge and commitment. And thanks to staff for the support you give the committee. It has been a wonderful experience, and this city has been the most special place to me my whole life. And so it's been a real privilege to be able to be part of this process and support keeping it Cannon Beach. So thank you all. And thanks everybody for all of the wonderful work. And I look forward to seeing where things go in the future.
Thanks, Jelaine.
Thank you, Jelaine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Jelaine.
Thank you so much. So I guess I would just like to wish everybody a very safe and happy holiday and a happy new year. And maybe I'll see you on the beach. We are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, Jelaine.
Joanne.